What's this? Another one? Yes, that's right. The Red Mile Rundown is back again this week. Another the end of the week now podcast. It's episode 87 of the Red Mile Rundown. I am your host, Johnny Stope, and I would like to welcome inside my co-host, as always, from flamesnation.ca. It's the one, the only Robert Munich, the law-abiding citizen, Robert Munich. How are you doing, Robert?
Thank you. Yeah. I mean, hey, it's the first Friday of Stampede. Tents are open. Everyone's ready to party. And here we are talking hockey. I love it.
Yeah, no kidding, right? No kidding. Nothing screams hockey season like July the 3rd on the first day of Stampede. But the Flames did make some good news this week, Robert. It was something that I don't think a lot of people were expecting to happen after we got through a couple of days of free agency. But the Flames like to drop bombs on us at weird times, and that's exactly what they did on Thursday. Has the Blake Coleman, saga, Blake Coleman situation has been resolved. The era's gone. As Blake Coleman and Olli are traded off to the Minnesota Wild, the Flames have got back defenseman Jake Middleton, which we'll get into, and 3 draft picks: the 29 second-round draft pick, a 27 third-round draft pick, 28 fourth-round draft pick. Robert, your overall thoughts of this trade? At first blush to now, my tune has changed a little bit on this trade for the good, and we'll get into that in a second. But what do you make of this trade overall for yourself?
Well, geez, I mean, at first, all the reports were it's Jacob Middleton coming to Calgary for Coleman and Maatta. And you're like, what? Like, that doesn't really make sense. But then all of a sudden, some more news starts to trickle out that there's going to be multiple draft picks involved. And then all of a sudden, you're like, okay, that starts to make a little bit more sense for this Calgary Flames team. And yeah, I mean, like, the way I would describe the deal is that I don't think it's like a grand slam home run like the Markstrom deal was, or Lindholm or Anderson or anything like that. I would say this is like a solid, single up the middle, maybe a double kind of thing, if you want to use a baseball term. Overall, I think it's really good work from Craig Conroy. Blake Coleman, he's an older veteran player, 1 year left on his contract. I mean, those guys aren't the most valuable players out there from a trade standpoint. So the fact you're able to turn him into 3 draft picks, and I'm a bigger Jacob Middleton fan than most people probably are. So to get him in the deal as well, that you could probably eventually flip for, say, another second round pick, maybe in 2 or 3 years, like all of a sudden 2 seconds, a third, and a fourth for Olli Maatta, who was a throw-in and a cap dump from the Mackenzie Weegar trade, and Blake Coleman was 1 year left on his deal. I mean, I think that's pretty good value for Craig Conroy and the Flames. So yeah, overall, my initial thoughts are, I think it's a good trade. I don't think it's spectacular by any means, but I don't think it's a failure either. Like, I think it's kind of somewhere in the middle there.
When I first texted you, I'm like, I'm okay with this trade. It felt like a little quantity over quality. But then I went back and looked at it. I'm like, you're essentially swapping defensemen. So you got a year younger defenseman than Olli Maatta in Jake Middleton. I'm with you. I like this defenseman. Good third pairing. Stayed home. He's kind of like this generation's version of a Robin Regeer style defenseman. He's not gonna dazzle you with some dangles in the corner or anything like that. He's gonna go to the front of the net, and he's gonna own the crease in his own end, and he's gonna be that stay-at-home steady guy. So I like that. You kind of capitalize on Olli Maatta that way. And then I look at it's 3 draft picks for Blake Coleman. So you turned a 35-year-old free agent that you signed 5 years ago into 3 draft picks. And the price that Conroy said that they set for Coleman was a second-round plus. And that's what they got for him. Yes, they're spread over a couple of years, but that is what it is. But it adds more draft capital to the Flames and allows them to be a little bit more flexible on other things that they want to try to do. So when I revisit this trade and kind of boil it down, and then you hear the news that Blake Coleman kind of didn't want to go into this season without an extension or a trade, one or the other type of situation, you kind of boil it down. And this trade actually, for me, looks a little better once you get into the ins and outs of this trade, into the finer details of this trade. So that's how I look at it. I kind of a swap of defense. I mean, you kind of get a guy in here. Middleton's going to stick up for your young kids. You got a lot of younger blue liners. That's what you love there. Love that about his game. Nothing against what Olli Maatta was doing, but Middleton's a little bit more tougher of a defenseman. Then you trade Blake Coleman, capitalize on what he did for you, and you get some more draft to play around with. So overall, I think Craig Conroy did a good job with this trade, and I think Middleton's going to I had some people on Twitter. Right? I showed you some texts that absolutely hated this trade and thought Middleton was the worst thing in the world. And I think we're going to grow to like this guy because that mustache is awesome and he seems to be a really nice guy. If you listen to the interviews out there.
Oh man, I guarantee he is going to become a fan favorite within 2 or 3 months of being in Calgary. Just I can guarantee it. It'll be exactly like what happened with Zach Whitecloud, where initially the Flames, they acquire him as part of the Rasmus Anderson trade, and everyone's like, why are you bringing in another defenseman? Like, we don't need this guy. He's a third pairing defenseman. Like, this is BS. It literally took Zach Whitecloud 1 week to basically turn the entire fan base onto his side,
right?
Just for being a good guy, a good leader. The way he plays the game, he plays like a really hardworking, honest game. And literally within a week, people were like, this guy's awesome. Like, we got to keep him. I can guarantee it'll be the exact same thing with Middleton. He's just got this amazing personality. He's exactly the type of defenseman the Flames need right now, just in terms of steady, stay at home, physical, tough, will beat the shit out of you if you touch Zajac, that kind of stuff. Like, that's exactly what the Flames need right now. And they got a Middleton who signed for another 3 years. Like,
yep.
During this period of the rebuild, you desperately need, I would say, probably 5 to 6 veteran players who are going to keep things light, who are going to be good leaders. They're going to show the rookies, how to become pros and make the environment at work fun, a positive place to be, but also a place where you're going to work your ass off and get better. And I think Middleton's going to be one of those guys that's going to be one of those kind of core leaders, along with your Michael Backlunds and Zach Whiteclouds and Huberdeau and Farabee and whoever else you want to throw in that mix. So yeah, from like a personality perspective and I think an on ice perspective, I think Flames fans are really going to appreciate Jake Middleton here.
I think it's going to benefit Kuznetsov and Ball a lot. Got to kind of play the style that Jake Middleton does. You got to be a stay-at-home defenseman, responsible on end, kind of be a little bit tougher to play in front of your net. And so he can kind of teach these guys how to be that at the NHL level a little bit further. I know Kevin Ball's done a really good job so far, but you can always learn more and be a better defenseman. And so I think it's going to be really good for those young guys to continue to learn from a veteran. 30 years old. It's not exactly like he's cresting the mountain of old age here. And you got a nice value for him. So I really like that pickup from Craig Conroy. I think that's an underrated part of the deal, much like Zach Whitecloud was in the Anderson deal. I like what you mentioned there and how you mentioned that there, though. Let's look back on Blake Coleman's time with yeah, go ahead.
I just want to mention like one other thing about the trade. Some of the other criticism was just the fact that the 2029 second round pick is so far away. Mm-hmm. But I think the positive way to kind of spin it and view it would be when the 2029 draft rolls around, or 2028, or when the 2029 trade deadline or draft rolls around, I think that pick could be used to help the Flames acquire an NHL player. Because I think around that time is when you're really going to start to see them turn for the better. And I think you're going to start to see them go from a rebuilding team to a team that's kind of pushing to make the playoffs, kind of like where San Jose is.
Yep.
Right now. So you can actually use that second round pick in 2029 to, bring in, say, like it's like a really good third line veteran or someone to help kind of round out your decor or backup goalie or, whatever piece the team's going to be missing at that point in time, they can use it then. But like, I just hear people say, well, you just acquired a 15-year-old, but I just don't know if I see them at that point using the pick on a player who's not going to be in your lineup until 2035. I see it as, hey, here's another asset that you can use to either move up in the draft, or you can find, a good veteran player in a trade, or you can use it as part of a larger package to bring in a Simon Nemec type of guy. So actually, I don't mind having that second round pick in 2029 either.
It spreads out your draft picks as well. I think if you're taking that view of it, you're kind of looking glass half empty at this trade and what this trade actually is. What this trade for me boils down to is you had a good player who came here as a free agent in Blake Coleman, who was looking to capitalize on some success the Flames have had. And at the time, Johnny was really good and Tkachuk was really good. And the Flames looked like they were going in a direction. You had a player here who had won before. You add him to your organization. He becomes a big leader. And then when things didn't go well, you had a player that didn't complain here and continued to went to work and help teach your younger players. You've capitalized on his success and what he was for you while he was with the organization. And now you've moved him along and you've got free assets essentially, because this guy cost you nothing when you first acquired him, just a contract. and now you've capitalized on that. So I don't know how you could be upset over any of that from the trade perspective.
That's such a good point. Like from an asset management standpoint, like you couldn't have asked for more from this free agent signing. Coleman gave you everything he could for 5 years. He was a really good player, really good leader, all that kind of stuff. And then, like you just said, then you flip him for 3 draft picks and a good defenseman who's going to be with your team for probably at least 2.5 years. Really, really strong work by Craig Conroy there. I really respect that.
Yeah, you got a 35-year-old winger, brought you 3 draft picks. Look at it that way as well. Like that's not go back and look at the history of 35-plus-year-old wingers being traded. They're not bringing in 3 draft picks a lot of times. Let's take a look back on Blake Coleman's time with the Flames real quick here, and we can do our lamenting of the player here and how much we like the guy, because I thought he fit in quite well with both versions of the Flames he played with. When the Flames were pushing in the playoffs and to that playoff series they had against Dallas, I thought Blake Coleman brought a lot to the organization, a lot of leadership. He did a lot of things really well. He found a very good pairing with Michael Backlund. Those two seemingly were never apart when it came to being the penalty killers or key situations. He was a good warrior, a good veteran for this team, and he never complained, and he always seemed to have a smile on his face. He wore the losses like the rest of us did, of course, but he also was that calming voice in the room for the younger players. What'd you make of Blake Coleman's time overall? Because I kind of think it's a success despite no team success, really.
Yeah, and the lack of team success is definitely not his fault.
Mm-hmm.
Blake gave everything he could. When I think of Blake Coleman, I don't think of a super talented guy. I just think of a guy who just works his ass off and is a very smart player. I think he's got the most out of his career that he possibly could. And I say that as a compliment, because not a lot of guys can do that. But like, I look at his time in Calgary as, number one, it's disappointing in the sense that when he signed here, the Flames, I think, legitimately had a 2 to 4 year window where they could have been a really good team and maybe gone to a Western Conference final. I don't know if they were ever Stanley Cup final good, but I do think they could have won multiple playoff rounds and gone on a bit of a run. And then that all just completely blew up in their face in the summer 2022 when Tkachuk and Gaudreau left, and Blake Coleman didn't sign up for that. And in that respect, I kind of felt bad for him. But then, at the same time, that 22-23 team on paper was very good, and that team should have made the playoffs, and they unfortunately didn't. But I mean, put that all aside, Coleman was a great Flame. I don't think you could ask any more from him. The guy would score big goals. He'd throw big hits. He'd work his ass off. He'd block shots. He played alongside with Michael Backlund. They were probably one of the best defensive forward duos in the NHL, both at 5-on-5 and the penalty kill. He just did so much for this team. And then the thing I respect most is that this was an American guy. Things went sideways a little bit. Things did not go how he planned. And like you said, he didn't complain. He embraced the Flames. He embraced the city of Calgary. His family embraced being Calgarians. Like, the guy was awesome on and off the ice. I am a massive fan of Blake Coleman. I think this is a huge loss for the team. Like, last season, how many times did we watch him? And like, he scored a big goal to tie the game, or he scored a game-winning goal, or he just made a big play to help the team win. I would argue losing Blake Coleman will probably lose the Flames at least 4 points in the standings this season. And overall, it's a good thing, but I think it just shows the impact this guy has. So when I think of Blake Coleman, I just think of a relentless worker, a guy who, treats people really well. He's a great leader. He's the Peter Marr good guy award winner multiple times over his time in Calgary. Like that just kind of says it all about the player and the person right there. So yeah, it's a huge loss. He's going to be a perfect fit in Minnesota. I could see him and Joel Eriksson Ek playing together kind of in a similar, Backlund Coleman thing, but now Coleman, Eriksson Ek. I think that's going to be a dynamic duo for that team. So I wish Coleman nothing but the best. I hope he wins a bunch of playoff series. And I hope he has a bunch of success for the rest of his career, because he was awesome. He was an awesome Calgary Flame.
Yeah, and to think, it felt like he was here longer than the 5 years he was here, because that's how much he endeared himself to the organization and the city and the work that he did around the city. And he just loved being a Flame, and he never complained when it got tough in the organization. He continually went to work, was continually a positive guy. And so he deserves an opportunity as well to go back to try to win some playoff games and potentially a Stanley Cup. It's a good team in Minnesota. It's a good spot for him to be. I think he'll fit right along Eriksson Ek, like you just mentioned. Eriksson Ek plays with Matt Boldy a lot, so could you imagine that as a trio would be quite fun to watch, be interesting to watch as well. And the Minnesota Wild are raving about how good this guy is on everything that we know Blake Coleman is good at, so he's going to be a good fit there. We wanted to also mention a little bit about Olli Maatta. I know he kind of feels like an afterthought in this trade because people are focused on what Middleton is and only a second-round draft pick, and Blake Coleman's gone. But Olli Maatta was here for a cup of coffee, but that was a pretty damn good cup of coffee with 14 points in 21 games. He actively was trying to sabotage a tank here in Calgary as he was trying to pull points out of everywhere. What do you make of the small sample size we got of Olli Maatta? And I think he too fits in well with what Minnesota's doing.
Yeah, I think, Matt he's a better puck mover. He's a better offensive defenseman than Middleton. And just with that kind of up-tempo, fast, quick puck movement system that they have with Faber and, Spurgeon and Quinn Hughes and Brodin on the blue line, like I think Maatta fits in really well there. Yeah, he blew our expectations out of the water. When he first came to Calgary, I just thought to myself, okay, he'll be a steady third pair guy. He'll play probably 75% of the games between now and the end of the season. And, he might put up 2 or 3 points, but he'll play in the penalty kill and he'll give you some good defensive minutes. This is a complete opposite of that. The guy looked like Cale Makar out there on some nights with the way he was jumping in the rush and the way, he would be playing down low in the offensive zone and playing in front of the net. And you're just like, who the hell is this guy? And like I said, like he's a guy they just threw in as kind of a salary dump. There was no real value in Olli Maatta because he wasn't playing with the Utah Mammoth. He barely played with them this year. So, the fact that the Flames were able to put him in the deal, increase his value in, 20, 21 games, however many games he played with the team, and then flip him as part of a deal to bring in 3 picks and a defenseman who fits the Flames' needs better right now is, once again, great asset management by Craig Conroy. I mean, how many times do we say great asset management when it came to Brad Living? Like Conroy, he just continues just to make very smart decisions. And what we're going to see here, I guarantee it, over the next 2, 3, 4 years, all these like little gains by Craig Conroy in asset management, it's going to start to build. It's going to start to build. And then all of a sudden, he's going to make 10 or 11 really good decisions in a row that are going to impact the team positively for the future. And something like grabbing Olli Maatta, increasing his value and bringing in, maybe an additional 2 draft picks because he's involved in the deal. Like that's going to start to add up for in equal good things. So, I look at his time in Calgary as a massive success. I could not believe how well he played. And I think he's going to fit well in Minnesota. And I just don't think the Flames need that kind of defenseman right now. I think Middleton meets the Flames' needs a lot more than Maatta does right now.
Yeah, I agree. You can't help but wonder what he can do now with Ryan Strome and potentially a Morgan Frost deal and whoever else, Zach Whitecloud, who might be moved out as well. When it comes to those type of moving and asset management conversation, Olli Maatta was a good guy as well. That smile that he had was infectious. It brings us to the conversation, though, Robert, that I saw all over social media. It took about 7 minutes from the time Blake Coleman was traded and bringing in Jake Middleton for me to see the first tweet about why another defenseman? We don't need another defenseman. We have too many defensemen. It goes back to the conversation we had on Tuesday about I've never heard a GM complain about having too many defensemen. But there's Kevin Ball, Simon Nemec, Kuznetsov. You got Zane Parekh. You got Zach Whitecloud, Jake Middleton, Joe Hanley, Briskalov. Sorry, not Briskalov. Bristavich. So I got 2 things mixed up there. Pahal and Weeb, who all played NHL games last year in the National Hockey League, and that's 10 guys, Robert. Is there a problem on the Flames? Is this too many guys on the back end? Is there AHL guys mixed in here? How do you look and view this, what people are calling a logjam on the back end?
I would agree with them in the sense of as of July 3rd, yeah, they absolutely have too many defensemen, 100%. But let's wait and see what happens until between now and opening night, because I think Conroy probably has another trade up his sleeve. Or, the other option is you can use the waiver wire. You can put Joel Hanley on waivers. You can put Braden Pahal on waivers. And I don't know if both of them will get claimed, but I could imagine seeing one of them get claimed, and then maybe you could throw one in the American Hockey League. There's 2 defensemen gone right there. I think the issue you're going to run into here is Hunter Bristavich.
Yes.
I don't know where he fits in right now. And, I would have no issue with him starting in the American Hockey League, but I could see that kind of, really hurting the relationship between the Flames and Brstevich. And, if I'm the Flames, I might be like putting him on the block. And if you can throw him as part of a trade package to maybe bring in, like a good young forward, between now and next year's draft or something like that, that's something that they might have to consider, because I don't see Parekh on the right side or on the left side long term. I think Parekh, Nemec, Whitecloud makes a lot of sense, and there's just no space for Brstevich. And if you want to get the most out of him, I feel like he's got to play on the second power play unit, because he's probably not going to be much of a penalty killer. So, and Nemec and Parekh are going to be taking all the power play time. So Brstevich is the one guy where I'm like, I wonder what his future's like, because you're not touching Kuznetsov, you're not getting rid of Ball, you're not getting rid. There's Carl's coming down the line here. And you're not getting rid of Middleton. You just brought him in. He's signed for another 3 years, and I think he's a big part of your future. So to me, it's Brstevich is the odd man out right now. And what do you see his future as? Like, do you think there's a bit of a dilemma there for the team, or do you just think they need to be patient with him?
I think it's a good problem to have if I can go that direction with it, because what is he? Because has he fully developed into what he is going to be at the National Hockey League level? You continually hear conversations about he's got to work on his pace still and his skating a little bit still to be at the National Hockey League level. Is there a world where the message to Hunter Brstevich about the start of next season, can you message it properly to him? Hey, go down for a dozen games, get going out there, and then we'll find a spot for you. Is that a conversation you have to move to kind of kick the bucket down the road there? I think Weeb goes to the American Hockey League. I think you're very spot on with Hanley and Pahal, possibly waivers or add on to other trades. But I'm with you. Hunter Brstevich is the one question mark of what is he at the National Hockey level. And in order for him to prove it, he's got to kind of play those games. And so it's very interesting. Do you rotate guys in to get him some games? Do you rotate Parekh to the left side on games just to get Brstevich into games? Very valid point by you as well with the power play minister. He's not going to get them. He's just flat out not going to get them unless you run 2D on your second pair. So it's a big question mark. And so for Hunter, it's got to be a big summer for him. He's got to come to camp ready to show that he deserves to be one of the 6 guys. So it's a good problem to have, because you have options on the back end that you can play around with, that you can move guys around. You have guys you can play with other, like it's quite nicely laid out for the Flames with a lot of offensive and then defensive guys who can do a lot of and play with a lot of different guys and do a lot of different things for you. But I think it's up to Brstevich. What is he? And I think at the end of the day, he might be your most valuable trade chip from the back end. I know people are in love with Zach Whitecloud, but what does a puck-moving defenseman do for you on the trade market as well to help fill some other holes? The problem with that then, too, Robert, is you look at the forward group. We'll get into this on another episode. There's a lot of forwards, too. We've talked about that. So if you move 100% for another forward, are you looking at a future forward? Are you looking for another veteran forward? So a lot of different avenues that could come out of having all of these defensemen, and it's a fun conversation for July the 3rd.
And you know what? The more I think about it, the more I'm wondering. Now, this is from a Flames perspective, not a Brstevich perspective, but playing in the American Hockey League next year, is that really the worst thing for his development?
No, not in my opinion. Not my eyes.
I don't think so either. Like you mentioned it there, like he still needs to work on a lot of stuff, and it's mainly the boots. He's got to get a little bit faster, and I think he's got to make a little bit more crisp passes. His passes aren't quite at NHL speed right now, and I think he still needs to work on the defensive game. So, I don't think it'd be a bad thing if he played the majority of the season in the American League, and then there's bound to be injuries. With the way Zane Parekh takes hits, wouldn't surprise me if he misses some games next year. Nemec has not had, clean bill of health for every single year he's been in the NHL. Might be an injury there. You never know. So he can maybe play some minutes as an injury replacement. And then, maybe he finishes the year in the American Hockey League. You kind of see where his development's at. And if it's clear that oh my God, this guy needs to be in the NHL, then you can trade Zach Whitecloud at the deadline or even next summer too. You don't have to keep Whitecloud forever. I think it'd be nice to keep him for this season. He just seems like the type of guy the Flames need in the lineup right now.
Yep.
But, like I said, if Brstevich is undeniable then you can trade Whitecloud, and then you get Brstevich in the lineup in his place at the deadline or next year, and then you just kind of go from there. Like that could be a potential solution for this too. I know Brstevich might be pissed about it, but if you explain it to him clearly, like, hey, like we think this is best for your developments and all this kind of stuff, like, maybe you can convince them that that's the right move.
It'll be an unpopular opinion around the Flames fan base. I know how this goes. We've had this conversation many times with many prospects. But if the message between the general manager, head coach, and the player is clear, hey, we need you to go to the American Hockey League for 6 weeks and play some games because we have these other players here. We need you to work on these things here and make it undeniable. Make us recall you, much like Mangiapane did a few years ago, much like Connor Zary did, much like Martin Pospisil did. Make it so they have to call Coronado's another good one. Make it so they have to call you back up. Make it that they have to move Zach Whitecloud out for a draft pick. Do something to make yourself undeniable. And I think he has it in him. We saw flashes last year before the Olympic break, because I thought after the Olympic break, he kind of struggled a little bit. Before the Olympic break, between Christmas and that Olympic break, I thought he played some really good minutes for the Flames. He looked confident in games. He looked like he was getting better. You could see the work he was putting in with the pace of play. In some games, he looked like a bona fide NHL player. Go be that guy at the American Hockey League level. And I think the Flames, with the way Conroy's approaching things and how Huska's approaching things now under the direction of Conroy, that messaging can be really put forward in a way that Brstevich understands. And you want him to not like it. Let's be honest. You want the competitor in Brstevich to not like, hey, why am I in the American Hockey League again? Let me show them why I shouldn't be here. And you hope that he takes that message to the Wranglers if that's the decision and that's his approach. And the Wranglers are going to benefit from it. So Coach Sutter's going to have a good player on his hands. And then the Flames, it will benefit at the end of the day because they have another young, right, puck-moving defenseman. And that's kind of the dream here if you're the Flames. It's a dream scenario. Make them move someone and give you a spot. That's kind of where I'm at with Brstevich.
And let me throw a question at you and the listeners here. What's better for Brstevich's development? Is it to be the Flames' number 6 defenseman and get limited ice time, not play on the power play, not play on the penalty kill, and probably be a healthy scratch, every now and then? Or would it be better for his development, as a 21-year-old defenseman to be the number 1 D-man with the Calgary Wranglers next year and play on the first power play, maybe give him some second unit penalty kill time and put him out against opposition's top forwards, and play 23 to 25 minutes a night. We have to keep in mind, Brstevich has only played 2 years of pro. He's 21 years old. It's not like he's 24. Like, he's still young and he's still learning. Yep. I don't think that would be the worst thing for him. I really don't.
There is a gentleman the Flames signed in Livingston that's going to play for the Wranglers next year. He's very similar to the guys the Flames have in Ball and Kuznetsov and those guys there. He plays a very similar game to those guys. He would be a great D partner for a guy like Brstevich in the American Hockey League to help develop those skills and that part of his game. And so I think that's if that's the way it plays out, I don't think that that's a bad thing at all for Brstevich and for the Flames at all. It's probably the way that I would play it, unless he comes to camp and blows the doors off. Of course, then you make room for a guy like that. But I think that's the way I'd play it if I was on July the 3rd playing general manager of the Flames.
Yeah, super interesting. He actually might be the most interesting story heading into training camp.
Definitely part of that for sure. All right. So Coleman traded. Flames have a lot of D. We'll see how that plays out. You had the privilege of going down and watching the All-Star Flames prospect development camp, a 3-on-3 game, watching all these future Hall of Famers do battle. So we wanted to kind of pick your brain a little bit about what stood out for you with the Hall of Famer Iginla and the Hall of Famer of Wittenbach, or that's how Twitter kind of tried to word it. What'd you make of development camp? What stood out to you, Robert?
I'm sensing you're a little skeptical about some people's analysis.
I just love development camp because how excited we get over these prospects and how we love to build them up, and it's kind of that's how you know you're in a hockey market, right? Development camp's the greatest thing in the world in July because you're so starved for good NHL hockey and watching the next kids, and we all want the next kid to be in the team right now. And when you go to development camp and they stand out, it's really easy to blow it out of the water, blow it out of proportion. And I appreciate the passion that fans have and bring to Twitter.
Yeah, I think it's pretty cool. I mean, there are probably a few hundred people there today on a Friday, like on a work day.
Awesome.
It's 24 degrees, not a cloud in the sky in Calgary today. Like, it's just spectacular day, Stampede starting. But all these hockey fans are out there to watch this. And I thought it was super cool. And the fans gave a standing ovation at the end. So I really like that. But, it was a lot of fun. And I would say that this is probably the best collection of prospects the Flames have ever had. In the past, they've had like your Johnny Gaudreau, who would have been like by far the best player, in this group. But in terms of just overall quantity of good players, this might be the best that they've had in at least modern team history, at least since I've been following them. So it was cool just to see them all on the ice together and see them compete and just kind of see like how they interact with each other and all that kind of stuff. And I'm telling you, the skill level, the speed, even like, we talk a lot about how the group, it's a little bit smaller of a prospect group. And I think the Flames might have been, kind of targeting size in this most recent draft here. But when you get up close, like I was at ice level filming some content. These guys are big, they're fast, super skilled. I was really impressed. And the one guy I'll shout out, because I was a little skeptical of the pick at first, but Maceo Phillips was really good.
Yeah.
Like, really good. He was flying out there. Like I thought he was the best skater on the ice in terms of just his speed and the power behind his stride. I was like, where did this come from? Because when I watched him at the, I think it was development camp 2 years ago, or last year, he was a little clunky. He looked like, I just think he wasn't kind of used to skating in his body, because I just think he's been growing so much. But I think the last year here, I think he's improved a lot, and super, super impressed by him. Yeah, he's going to need to improve his hands and his playmaking, but just the skating, the athleticism, and trying to get around this guy is a nightmare with the long stick and just the strength. And he's got really like a long, wide wingspan. Like, just the guy is a tank. So I was super impressed by him. And, you can tell Reshny is a really good player. Wittenbach's hands are unbelievable. Joe Iginla, he's got the shot. There's no doubt that shot's there. Even like a guy like Jonathan Castagna can fly. Like, after watching Castagna today, I was like, whoa, like that guy looks like he could play in the NHL probably near the end of next season. So overall, just, it was just like fun. It was fun to go watch these guys skate. It was fun to watch the 3-on-3 and the shootout and all that kind of stuff. And, the future is very bright for this prospect group, man. I'm telling you, I think there's probably 6 to 8 guys who could be legit NHL players out of this group.
It makes you excited for the work that Conway's done. Hey, and what's coming in the future here? Like, I think
100%.
I think the Rangers or the Wranglers going to be a really good watch next season, because you're going to see some of these guys there. I think people are going to tune into NODAC games because you got prospects there, and Michigan State games because of other prospects that are there. It's exciting to watch, and I'm glad people went out and enjoyed and supported it. I know the prospects might not like it as much as some of the fans like it, but it's a good opportunity to see what's coming in the pipeline, and excited to watch that. So glad we got those thoughts on the podcast here, Robert.
And just one more thing I'll add.
Yes, sir.
Cullen Potter did not play in the scrimmage today. He was on the sheet beside doing some skills work. So I assume he probably like tweaked something, or he just wasn't feeling 100%. And then Henry Muse wasn't on the ice either. So, this group looked high-end and dynamic, even without those two players. And Muse is, has the potential to be a great player. Potter, first-round pick. So even without those two guys, the group was looking really good. So just kind of like another little observation there.
Yeah, probably smart with both of them coming off really big, severe injuries as well to not push them. It's the news of the day, Robert, and it's not Flames related, but we got to get it in there because people are calling for the Flames to now throw offer sheets out there. What a wild offer sheet thrown out by the Philadelphia Flyers to Leo Carlsson currently of the Anaheim Ducks. What'd you make of this offer sheet? I was just reading up here. I'm going to pull it up again. Puckpedia threw out the breakdown. That first year is $850K for the salary with a $19.95 million signing bonus. What an insane offer sheet, because year 2 is $900K with an $18.1 million signing bonus. What an offer sheet by Philadelphia. How if you're Verbeek, are you matching this bad boy?
I think you have to. I mean, the Ducks just went through 6 or 7 years of brutal hockey.
Yeah.
And the whole point of going through that was to find yourself a Leo Carlsson type of player to build around. So to go through all those years of awful hockey and to build your roster to the team that you are today, and just to lose your best player at the snap of a finger, I mean, that would be devastating for that organization. I think if you're Pat Verbeek, you absolutely have to sign Carlson that contract. And I think it's a really smart move by Philly because, number one, Verbeek, he's a hard negotiator. He doesn't like paying his players. And then number two, my understanding is that the ownership in Anaheim, the Samueli family, they do not like paying out signing bonuses. They do not like overpaying their players. Mm-hmm. And this would be the biggest overpayment of overpayments. Carlson becomes the highest paid player in the league after signing this offer sheet. So, between Verbeek and Ducks ownership, I'm not convinced that they're actually going to go through with it. But I think they totally should. But yeah, that great move by Philly, because that Philly's needed a number one center forever. And I just think it's brilliant by them. And they targeted a team that doesn't like paying all that kind of money. So I think it made a lot of sense for both sides.
Let me play the other side for just be devil's advocate. What if Anaheim, and I got this idea from the guys at the Empty Netters podcast, they tweeted out, and I like this one a lot. What if Anaheim takes the draft picks, turns around and goes to Detroit and grabs Dylan Larkin? Do you think that lessens the blow of losing a Carlson? Does that make Anaheim still a good hockey club? Does that help them be a good hockey club? It's just an interesting conversation, interesting thought to have there. To turn around and use those picks on a guy like Dylan Larkin would be an interesting move for Verbeek to do there.
Super interesting. Yeah, that's fascinating, because you get Larkin for $10 million less than what Carlson would be. And in terms of production, like, I see Carlson maybe putting up on average 10 to 15 more points per year than a guy like Larkin.
Yep.
Like that's super, super interesting. Yeah, I mean, if you're the Ducks, like, that's the kind of thing that you'd be looking at here for sure. Because I love that.
If they match it, they're gonna have to move a guy like a Killorn or a Kreider to because that's a big cap hit.
Well, they got to sign Cutter Gauthier too.
Yeah, exactly. And this is where this is going is with this as well. Is there's reports out there. Chris Johnston started it with that might not be the only offer sheet coming down in the next 24 hours, and a lot of people are looking at Minchikov, the defenseman in Anaheim. So if you're Verbeek, you're gonna have some work on your plate here to do, because people are coming for your players and coming for them in a various different ways here. So you gotta get if you're Verbeek, you gotta get some work done here, buddy. Like, you're gonna start losing some players if you're not careful. So
Verbeek's gonna have a heart attack and die after today. Oh my god.
That begs the question, Robert, and we've had the offer sheet conversation on the pod a few times. If you're the Flames, do you look at a guy like Minchikov? If you do the right deal, it'll cost you a second-round draft pick. Do you look at a bigger fish in the sea? A lot of people are now looking at Connor Bedard. Where do you sit? Does this change your mind with the offer sheet conversation?
Not for the Flames. No, that they are not in a position whatsoever to be doing that. Because I envision the Flames finishing in the bottom five for at least the next 2 years. And you can't be giving up those picks. Because, I mean, what if you do win a lottery and you lose out on Landon Dupont? Or like next year, after Dupont, there's 4 or 5, legit top 6 centers that are going to be available for the Flames. You can't pass up on that. And then, it's going to throw your whole cap structure, all over the place. And if you're like a team who's actually contending, whose first round picks are going to be 20 through 32 for the next 4 years, offer sheets make a ton of sense. Mm-hmm. If you're a team that's going to be finishing in the bottom 5 for the next 2 to 4 years, it makes no sense at all. So yeah, from a Flames perspective, no, do not go after the Bedards or anything like that. Just be patient. This is going to work. I guarantee this rebuild's going to work. Conroy's doing a great job. Don't rush it. Even though Don Maloney's going to be pushing for it. We all know that.
I look at, and this is me putting cart before the horse, but I'm looking at a guy like Alexis Joseph next year in that draft. And I do like Landon Dupont. I do a lot, but I really think that if the Flames get themselves an Alexis Joseph next year, I do not do anything with the 2027 first round draft pick. I do not move it for anything. I do not move it off of it for an offer sheet, especially. Like, that for me is the biggest untouchable in the Flames organization right now, based on where they are in their rebuild process, their needs. And if you're offer sheeting Bedard, that contract's going to come in and just destroy your salary cap work, and it's going to put everything into spin, because you got a lot of your younger players are going to start coming through, and Gritton's going to need a contract soon, and then you're going to have the Kolreshnys that are going to be right after, and Zane Parex are going to come after that. You have Simon Nemec to sign soon, or right here, right now. So I think an offer sheet does more damage than good. As exciting as a player like Connor Bedard would be in the Flames organization, I'm with you though, Robert. I'm not partaking in the offer sheet conversation. That 2027 first rounder is untouchable in my opinion.
Yeah, like come 2030, then maybe you can take an offer sheet into consideration, but 27, 28, 29 first round picks are off the table no matter what. And you know, I was just kind of thinking, one more takeaway from this whole offer sheet conversation. Sign your young players. Sign your young players for as long as you can, because what ended up happening here is the Anaheim Ducks, they put off signing Leo Carlsson and Cutter Gauthier. And say they signed him last year, and they signed Carlsson, let's say, to an 8-year deal at $10 or $12 million, and Cutter Gauthier at $7 to $9 million. You know, all of a sudden you're looking at about $18, $19 million between the two players. Now between these two guys, if you match the offer sheet and with what Cutter Gauthier is going to get after scoring 40 goals, you know, that's probably going to be over $30 million between the two players. So you just wasted about $10 to $12 million of cap space because you held off for too long.
Yep.
And you were indecisive. So, you know, it's just one of those things where if you believe in the young player and you think they're going to be a big part of your team moving forward, sign them for as long as you can, as quickly as possible. And 2 to 3 years into the deal, it's going to look like a steal. So that kind of applies to Simon Nemec for me.
Yeah, I'm with you there. I'll go long term with these guys. Like it, the Flames got burnt by it as well. Like we have an example of that in our own organization. Matthew Tkachuk is a good example of that as well. Like we could have had him a lot longer than we did, and we, you know, he got a nice bridge deal, walked him right out of town. So
thanks, Brad. Thanks, Brad.
Thanks, Brad. Pay your guys. Pat Verbeek is learning a lesson the hard way, and it'll be a fascinating story to watch. The Flames have traded Blake Coleman. He is now a Minnesota Wild. They get back a defenseman, so that has to work out as well. And lots more still coming around the Flames to go this summer. Some more questions still. We'll get into that on Monday on the or Tuesday on the podcast, as there'll be some more to chat about. We'll also let you know our summer schedule on Tuesday, as well as we try to work through what we're going to be doing over the course of July and August. We start the fun time of year, Robert. Summer is here, so let's go enjoy it. And Team Canada plays on Saturday at the FIFA World Cup, so lots to do this weekend. Enjoy the World Cup, and thank you so much for making us a part of your podcast rotation and for downloading this special episode of the show. We genuinely do appreciate it, and we'll see you guys on Tuesday for another episode of the Red Mile Rundown.